chapter 18. And in those days there was no king in Israel, and in those days the tribe of Danites sought them an inheritance to dwell in. For unto that day there had nothing been allotted unto them among the tribes of Israel for an inheritance. And the children of Dan sent of their family 5 men from the whole number, men of valor, from Zorah and from Eshtaol, to spy out the land, and to search it. And they said unto them, Go, search the land. And they came to the hill country of Ephraim, unto the house of Micah, and lodged there. And when they were by the house of Micah, they knew the voice of the young man, the Levite. And they turned aside there, and said unto him, Who brought you here? And what dost you in this place? And what hast you here? And he said unto them, Thus and thus has Micah dealt with me, and he hath hired me, and I am become his priest. And they said unto him, Ask counsel, we pray you, of God, that we may know whether our way which we are going shall be prosperous. And the priest said unto them, Go in peace, before the Lord is your way wherein you go. Then the 5 men departed, and came to Laish, and saw the people that were therein, how they dwelt in security, after the manner of the Zidonians, quiet and secure, for there were none in the land, possessing authority, that might put them to shame in any thing. And they were far from the Zidonians, and had no dealings with any man. And they came unto their brethren to Zorah and to Eshtaol, and their brethren said unto them, What say you? And they said, Arise, and let us go up against them, for we have seen the land, and behold, it is very good. And are you still? Be not slothful to go and to enter in to possess the land. When you go, you shall come unto a people secure, and the land is large, for God hath given it into your hand, a place where there is no want. It has everything that is in the earth. And there set forth from thence of the family of Danites out of Zorah and out of Eshtaol 600 men girt with weapons of war. And they went up and encamped in Kiriath Jearim in Judah, wherefore this place was called Manahanadan unto this day. Behold, it is behind Kiriath Jearim. And they passed from there unto the hill country of Ephraim, and came unto the house of Micah. Then answered the 5 men that went to spy out the country of Laish, and said unto their brethren, Do you know that there is these houses, an ephod, and a teraphim, and a graven image, and a molten image? Now therefore consider what you have to do. And they turned aside there, and came to the house of the young man, the Levite, even unto the house of Micah, and asked him of his welfare. And the 600 men, girt with weapons of war, who were of the children of Dan, stood by the entrance of the gate. And the 5 men that went to spy out of the land went up, and came in there, and took the graven image, and the ephod, and the teraphim, and the molten image, and the priest stood by the entrance of the gate, with 600 men girt with weapons of war. And when these went into Micah's house, and fetched the graven image of the ephod, and the teraphim, and the molten image, and the priest said unto them, What do you? And they said unto him, Hold your peace, lay your hand upon your mouth, and go with us, and be to us a father and a priest. It is better for you to be a priest unto the house of one man, or to be priest unto a tribe and a family in Israel. And the priest's heart was glad, and he took the ephod and the teraphim and the graven image, and went in the midst of the people. So they turned and departed, and put the little ones and the cattle and the goods before them. When they were a good way from the house of Micah, the men that were in the houses near Micah's house were gathered together, and overtook the children of Dan. And they cried unto the children of Dan, and they turned their faces, and said unto Micah, What aileth you, that you comest with such a company? And he said, You have taken away my God, which I made, and the priest, and are gone away. And what have I more? And how then say you unto me, What aileth you? And the children of Dan said unto him, Let not your voice be heard among us, lest angry fellows fall upon you, and you lose your life, with the lives of your household. And the children of Dan went their way, and when Micah saw that they were too strong for him, he turned and went back unto his house. And they took that which Micah had made, and the priest whom he had, and came unto Laish, unto a people quiet and secure, and smote them with the edge of the sword, and they burnt the city with fire. And there was no deliverer, because it was far from Zidon, and they had no dealings with any man, and it was in the valley that lieth by Beth Rehob. And they built the city, and dwelt therein. And they called the name of the city Dan, after the name of Dan their father, who was born unto Israel. Howbeit the name of the city was Laish at the first. And the children of Dan set up for themselves the graven image. And Jonathan, the son of Gershom, the son of Manasseh, he and his sons were priests to the tribe of Danites until the day of captivity of the land. So they set them up, Micah's graven image, which he made all the time that the house of God was in Shiloh. All right, let's go back up here to verse 1. Remember from last chapter that Micah's made this little image, had it, his mother's took the money, and they've made a molten image and a graven image, and they've set it up. They've prepared a place, and they've made an ephod, a priestly garment, to go with this image. He's got him a priest. He's actually hired him a real Levite for a priest after he had consecrated his only son to be the first priest. He's hired him a Levite now, and the Levite's the priest here. Verse 1, and in those days there was no king in Israel, and in those days the tribe of Danites sought them an inheritance to dwell, for unto that day there had nothing been allotted unto them among the tribes of Israel for an inheritance. So this is going to set this whole time period back during this period of time when Ephraim had their land given to them, and Manasseh had their land, and Judah had their land, and of course the 2.5 tribes on the other side had their land, but there was still these other tribes that had not had their land, these 6 tribes or 6.5 tribes. And the children of Dan, and this would be the time period that would be set. So that would mean Joshua's still around, and this would be that time period. And the children of Dan sent out of their family 5 men from their whole number, men of valor from Zorah and from Eshtaol, to spy out the land and to search it. And they said unto them, Go search the land. And they came to the hill country of Ephraim, unto the house of Micah, and lodged there. So they've sent their own 5 men out to check out this land. Dan means the judges, and they sent 5 men of their own, and these 5 means grace. They sent their own men out to spy out the land. Joshua, remember, told to take 3 men from each tribe, but they've sent 5 of their own, and they're doing this on their own part. And they've gone from Zorah and from Eshtaol. We remember Zorah and Eshtaol. That's where, in between here, is where they buried Samson. Zorah means the hornets, and Eshtaol means this place of questioning. And they sent them out to spy out the land. And they've gone out from the hill country of Ephraim, the double-fruited, and they've come to the hill country of Ephraim after they've left to go search the land out, and they've come to Micah's house, this one who is like God. Micah means who is like God. And when they were by the house of Micah, they knew the voice of the young man, the Levite, verse 3, and turned aside there. And he said unto them, Who brought you here, and what doest you in this place, and what have you here? So when they got to Micah's house, they heard this young man, this Levite, talking, and they knew him, so they recognized his voice. And they went there and said, hey, what are you doing here? And what do you do in this place? And what all do you have here? And he said unto them, Thus and thus has Micah dealt with me, in verse 4, and he hath hired me, and I am become his priest. So the young Levite says, well, Micah's hired me, and he's made a priest out of me. Verse 5, and they said unto him, Ask counsel, we pray you, of God, that we may know whether our way which we are going shall be prosperous. So they told the young Levite, says, well then, if this is what you do, you ask God now, take counsel of God, and see if our way's made prosperous. We're going out here to spy out the land, and you let us know whether this is all right with God. Verse 6, and the priest said unto them, Go in peace, before the Lord is your way wherein you go. So this young Levite says, go in peace. He's going ahead and giving the go-ahead from God. He's already taken over the mouth of God and standing there and before this little idol that he's raised up, and he's speaking as he speaks for God. And he says, before the Lord is your way, wherein you go. Well, of course it is. We're always going before God in where we go. And so he's really told him nothing but just go in peace. And this is the symbolism of what they're always teaching. Peace, peace, peace. There is no peace, though. We see this for ourselves. 7. Then the 5 men departed and came to Laish. And these 5, once again, being for grace. Laish means lion, in the male sense of a male lion. And they saw the people that were therein, how they dwelt in security after the manner of the Zidonians, quiet and secure, for there was none in the land possessing authority that might put them to shame in anything. And they were far from the Zidonians, and had no dealings with any man. So in verse 7 we see that they're like the Zidonians. And Zidonians means a fisher, someone who catches fish for a living. And they were just like the Zidonians, these fishers, except they lived very far away from the Zidonians. And they lived in an area where there wasn't anybody else, just them. So they was very secure in a quiet little place, far from anybody, any man. And they came unto their brethren, verse 8, unto Zorah and Eshtaol, and their brethren said unto them, What say you? So these 5 men have went down, and they've looked around this area, this land here that they've gone to spy out, and they found this people that are very quiet and ain't hurting nobody. They're far away. They're just quiet little fishing village. 9. And they returned to their brethren there in Zorah and Eshtaol, in between there, and and the brethren, when they've come back, has asked them, what say you? And they said, Arise, and let us go up against them. Verse 9. For we have seen the land, and behold, it is very good, and are you still? Be not slothful to go and to enter in to possess the land. So these men that went up to spy out come back, and they've asked, What do you say? And they said, We've seen the land. It is good. It's very good. Now, are you just going to stand there? Don't be slothful. Don't be lazy. Let's go up and take it over. Verse 10, When you go, you shall come into a people secure, and the land is large. For God hath given it into your hand, a place where there is no want. It hath everything that is in the earth. So they've told them, hey, there's a people here. They're just nice, quiet people. They're secure in the way they do things. This place has got everything you need. It's beautiful and it's wonderful, and God has given it over into your hand. Verse 11, And they set from there of the family of the Danites, out of Zorah and out of Eshtaol, 600 men, girt with the weapons of war. And these judges are going to leave out of here, and there's 600 of them, and this 600 represents 6. 6 days shalt you do your labor. 6 is representation of the labor of man. And this 100 is that it is appointed to judgment. So this labor of man is appointed to judgment, and that's what this story is about. How this portion of labor will be assigned for judgment, and just really how it got its roots and how it's got its starts. And they went up and encamped, verse 12, in Kiriath Jearim in Judah, and wherefore that place was called Mahaneh Dan unto this day. Behold, it is behind Kiriath Jearim. And we remember this place. This is where God began to bless Samson. This is the place where God began to be with Samson. This encampment of judges is what this says. This Mahaneh Dan means. It means the encampment of judges. And Kiriath Jearim is the city of the forest. Verse 13, And they passed from there unto the hill country of Ephraim, and came unto the house of Micah. So they've left out of this encampment of judges. This is how it got its name, and it was called that. And they've come to Micah's house there in Ephraim. Verse 14, Then answered the 5 men that went to spy out the country of Laish, and said unto their brethren, Do you know that there is in these houses an ephod and teraphim, and a graven image and a molten image? Now therefore consider what you have to do. So these 5 men now, they've told their brethren, these 600 men of war that have come through. They've come to this little village there where Micah is, and they said, "Did you know there's a graven image and an ephod, a priestly garment here, and a molten image, and all kinds of tools which they worship these things with? Now therefore consider what you have to do." So you would think they would be turning in here to obey the word of God and destroy this and tear it down and burn it, but that's not what's going to happen. Verse 15, "And they turned aside there, and they came to the house of the young man, the Levite, even unto the house of Micah, and asked him of his welfare." So now they've turned on into this little village there where Micah's got his house and this Levite's little house, and they've asked him, "How are you doing?" Verse 16, "And the 600 men that were girt with their weapons of war, who were of the children of Dan, stood by the entrance of the gate." So you got 600 men girt with all their weapons, are ready for war, and they're standing there by the gate of Micah's house, and this priest, the 5 men have went in and asked the priest, "How you doing?" And you know he's going to be scared to death. Verse 17, "And the 5 men that went to spy out the land went up and came in there, and took the graven image, and the ephod, and the teraphim, and the molten image, and the priest stood by the entrance of the gate with the 600 men girt with the weapons of war." So the priest, he's come out to meet them, and he's standing there at the gate with these 600 men, and these 5 that had come out to check out the land, they've gone in, and they've gathered up everything that Micah had made to worship this not a god, this false idol that he had created with his own hands, or not his hands, but he had done by the artificer who did it. And they've took him, and this teraphim are these tools they use to perform these ceremonies they do, and who knows what kind of tools they use to offer unto their gods. I don't even want to know. 18, "And when they went into Micah's house and fetched upon your mouth," and we might say something about that, those tools they used to worship their God, or to worship this image they had. We got to remember in Deuteronomy in chapter 12, God commanded you to not worship him after how they worship all these other gods, because after every abomination have they done unto their gods. Verse 19, "And they said unto him, Hold your peace, lay your hand upon your mouth, and go with us, and be to us a father and a priest. Is it better for you to be a priest unto the house of one man, or to be priest unto a tribe of the family in Israel?" So this young priest, he's come out and he says, "Hey, what are you doing?" Because they're carrying out this idol, and they're carrying out his ephod, and they're carrying out all this stuff. And they said, "Hey, hold your peace, lay your hand upon your mouth, and go with us." So, in other words, just shut up and come with us and be a father and priest to us, to our tribe. Is it better that you would just be a priest to one person, or you could be a priest now to a whole tribe in the family of Israel? So we're going to see right here in just a moment this little image that Micah has made, who he used just to kind of get a hold over those who was nearby him through his teachings and his little priest he had set up. But it's getting ready to be taken up by a whole tribe, and the whole tribe, this whole individual nation, is going to have it over them now. In just a moment, it's exploded into a nationwide thing. This idol that they've had made is going to become a major problem now. But we remember, this is all of God, so that you can see and understand, how God has done this. God is going to cause this to prosper for a reason. We're going to find that out. "And the priest's heart," 20, "was glad, and he took the ephod and the teraphim and the graven image, and they went in the midst of the people." So the priest, he was just as happy about that as he could be. So he gathers up his priestly garment and all of his little tools there that he uses, and the graven image, even that molten image. and he went into the midst of the people. So he just went on into the middle of them all, and he's off and gone with them. So they turned and departed, verse 21, and put the little ones and the cattle and the goods before them. So they've turned and left, and they got all the women and children up front, and the men of war are in the back, because they know there's probably going to be some retaliation for what they've done. They've just went in. They've covered what their neighbor had, even this idol. They've went in and took it, all but by force. And it will be by force here before long, so they've stolen. We see that they're just breaking the law. No one really cares, and they should have destroyed this according to the Word of God. They ain't done that. They're taking it to themselves now, these judges. The judges have taken it over. 22, when they were a good way from the house of Micah. When they were a good way from the house of Micah, then the men that were in the houses near to Micah's house were gathered together, and they overtook the children of Dan. So everybody got together, all these people, these houses that were around Micah, this little village area there, and they've got together, and they've come, and they've caught up with Dan. 23, and they cried unto the children of Dan, and they turned to their faces, and said unto Micah, What aileth you, and that you have come with such a company? So they turned around, the children of Dan, these judges, and they've said to Micah, What's your problem? What do you mean coming out with all these men? Basically asking him, are you wanting to fight? And he said, You have taken away my God, 24, which I made, and the priest, and are gone away. And what have I more? And how then say you unto me, What aileth you? How can you tell me what's your problem, when you've taken my God, which I made, and the priest, and are gone your way? So he's telling them, hey, look, I made this thing, and that's my priest. And you've taken it, and you've left me with nothing. And what do you mean, what's wrong with me? And we see here that Micah admits that he made this God, and he set this priesthood up. God didn't do this. It's of God. God's allowing it to go on. They're doing it, and God's not stopping them. Why? Because you're the one supposed to stop them. Dan was supposed to stop them. Dan was supposed to tear this down and burn everything there. But he didn't. He allowed it. And Dan represents those judges, and the judges took control of it. And the judges took it up. And they are going to use it. 25, And the children of Dan said unto him, Let not your voice be heard among us, lest angry fellows fall upon you, and you lose your life with the lives of your household. So basically Dan says here, hey, listen, lower your voice a little bit, lest some of these guys with us, some of these guys are already mad, jump on you and kill your whole house. So they threatened him. They threatened his life now, and now they've actually just strong-arm robbed a man. Well, of course, what they've took ain't worth diddly, but they've got it anyway. And the children of Dan went their way, verse 26, and Micah saw that they were too strong for him, and he turned and went back to his house. So Micah, this one who's like God, this man who's like God, just tucks his tail and takes her back to the house because Dan's too much for him. 27, And they took that which Micah made, and the priest whom he had, and they came to Laish unto a people quiet and secure, and smote them with the edge of the sword, and they burnt the city with fire. And this would be what they would do. They would take this image, and they would go to Laish, means the lion. They would go to this little village, and they would kill everybody there with the sword, and they would burn this city with fire, and set up that idol there that they had took from Micah. After and destroyed these people, and this is what they would do in the end. This is a symbolism of just what they would do in the end with their little image. How they would take over this people, a quiet, secure people, a peaceful people, and they would use their image to destroy them. And this burnt the city with fire. Of course, when you go into another god or take part in their idols and take part in their worships, you pass through this fire, and you are dead. And there was no deliverer, 28, because it was far from Zidon, and they had no dealings with any man, and it was in the valley that lieth by Beth Rehob, and they built the city and dwelt therein. So, and Zidon means fishers, and Beth Rehob means the house of widening, or the house of this wide place, a broad place. And they built the city and dwelt therein. And this would be where Dan would build his city. And we'll find out this whole story is about. See, Dan had his inheritance down here between Judah and Ephraim over by the coast of the Great Sea. And now he's went up, and this is be that portion that Dan has up above Naphtali there. This is the area we're actually talking about. 29, and they called the name of the city Dan, or Judge, after the name of Dan, their father, who was born unto Israel. However, the name of the city was Laish at the first. So they called the city Dan, and they took it over. And the children of Dan set up for themselves, in verse 30, the graven image, and Jonathan, the son of Gershom, the son of Manasseh, he and his sons were the priests, the tribe of Danites, until the day of the captivity of the land. So they set this little idol up there, and this idol would be there until the children of Israel would be carried away into captivity by the Assyrians later on. And Jonathan means God has given. Gershom means the exiled, or these that have been cast away. And Manasseh, of course, is caused to forget. So, and we would see that this is the judgment that come upon those that made theirself this image, that made theirself these priests, and they set up and they rule like priests or whatever they think they are over this idol. See, God has given you into exile, and he's cast you away, and he's caused you to forget the truth. Yes, he's caused you to forget the true God who come through the law, who gives you the law. And this is the covenant God made. See, and you're still in captivity until this day, and you always will be. This is what delivered you in captivity, and delivered all of Israel into captivity, and delivered all the world into captivity. These images that you have made, and these teachings of men that you follow, 31, so they set them up Micah's graven image, which he made, all the time that the house of God was in Shiloh. Shiloh means rest. So all the time that this house, and we're going to find out what happens to Shiloh before long, because see, God, this is what's going on abroad in the whole country during this time. And this is what goes on now in all the earth at this time. God is going to punish just like he does even these children of Dan, these judges who are delivered into captivity. He's showing how he takes away those heads, the judges, those that set over you, and he's delivered them already into captivity. God, first thing he's going to do is take out the authority element, which he's already done. Okay, we're going to move on to chapter 19.